It's time for another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing South Carolina, featuring interviews with leaders and influencers across a variety of manufacturing disciplines discussing trending topics in the industry. Let's Talk Manufacturing is part of the Let's Talk Business South Carolina network of B2B talk shows and brought to you by the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And now, coming to you from the Drum Creative Studio, here's your host, longtime South Carolina business publisher, Rick Jenkins.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing South Carolina. We are up to episode number 7. I'm glad you found us. All episodes are produced in conjunction with the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and as always, they are recorded right here in the Drum Creative Studio. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at AFL. They are a leading global manufacturer of fiber optic cable, and they are headquartered in Duncan, just up the road from us in Spartanburg County. AFL delivers a wide assortment of products to customers around the world. These customers include organizations such as telecom companies, electric utilities, data center corporations, and even oil and gas firms. AFL's partnership helps us bring this type of manufacturing content to the advanced manufacturing community throughout South Carolina, and we certainly appreciate their partnership. A little more on those guys later in the episode. I've got 3 guests joining me today on the show. The first one is right here with me. His name is Mike Demas. He is the OpExChange coordinator for the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Mike, I'm going to get to you in just one second.
Sure.
But we've also got a couple other folks. Christy Hilyer will be with us after Mike. She is the regional vice president at Malone Workforce Solutions, and Christy and I will be talking about how manufacturers and staffing solutions firms just like Malone are working together these days to solve a whole lot of workforce challenges in that industry. And then in our feature slot for this show is Andy Kurtz. Andy is the CEO at Kopis. Andy has joined us on the show before. Kopis, they are a South Carolina-based tech solutions firm. And matter of fact, they are one of the most respected custom software development firms in the entire Southeast. Andy's been running that organization since 1999. He's been the CEO. He founded it back then. And he and I are going to talk about how artificial intelligence is being used now in the manufacturing industry to help train a workforce. So we got a good show. But now back to this guy, Mike Demas, SCMEP coordinator for the OpExChange. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
It is good to have you here. I have somebody from SCMEP on a lot, and as always, we always get a lot of good content. So let's get right into it, Mike.
All right.
You are the coordinator of the OpExChange.
OpExChange.
The OpExChange for SCMEP. Now, before we get into that, I do want to talk about you for a quick sec. You've been in the manufacturing industry for a few decades now, 30 years.
Plus a few.
Plus a few. I hear you. I'm at that point now where I just say some extra, right? So I understand that. You have worked with Fortune 500 companies. You have worked for small companies. You have been in situations where you were over up to 1,000 people. You've seen it. You've done it. Tell us about yourself.
So yeah, I've been here mostly in the upstate. I've been southeast, but mostly in the upstate South Carolina. I worked at Dish Network, which is a great company, Dish Network. The member of the OpExChange, by the way.
All right.
And I was there for 10 years, and I was the general manager at Morgan Advanced Materials in Malden.
And but you have been with the OpExChange since what, 2020?
Oh, yeah. No,
well, you were a member before.
Yeah,
right?
I was a member of the OpExChange. It was the Lean Alliance. It used to be the Lean Alliance.
That's right.
And then it rebranded. But I was a member with Dish Network. We started in 2006. This thing when I joined the OpExChange.
Right. But then you joined SCMEP as coordinator of the OpExChange.
Yeah, 4 years ago.
In 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So that's where I got that number from. And yeah, you're right. They did rebrand, 20 years ago or something, right? It was the Lean Alliance.
It rebranded to be OpExChange. So it used to be just about lean manufacturing.
Right.
Sharing lean manufacturing practices, best practices. Yeah. But it evolved over time, and it's still lean manufacturing is one of the 3 legs of the OpExChange. Lean manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, leadership. The 3 legs, but it's anything about your plant, making your plant better.
I got it. What's the mission?
So we want to, as part of the SCMEP, we want to make South Carolina better, right? We want to improve the competitiveness of all the manufacturers, small, medium, large, and it's by sharing best practices, by one plant sharing with another. This is how we did it. So you don't have to start from square one. You learn from what others have done. Learn from what they've done is good. They learn from their mistakes as well.
Right. How many members are in the exchange?
I think we have, as of today, like 203 manufacturing companies.
It allows you not to be an expert at everything, right? You've got an expert at your fingertips when you're in a group like that.
That's one of our mottos, right? That you don't have to be an expert at everything, but you have access to experts in everything.
That's right. And you all meet how often? How often do you meet?
So we have plant visits and webinars and workshops. So the board, OpExChange board, has asked me to do between 6 and 9 events per quarter, and I always hit that. I go for that 9. Right. So it's about 36 events per year.
Wow. That's a lot of events. From somebody who used to do a lot of events myself, I know that they can be taxing.
Yeah.
So these types of events, you go out into different manufacturing facilities and have them on site? Is that the way it works?
Yeah, when a company joins the OpExChange, it's about sharing. It's about collaborating. It's not just to take, it's to what can you give as well. It's about sharing and participating. So everyone that joins agrees to share in some fashion. Typically, it's a plant visit. It can be a webinar, it can be a virtual visit, but it's typically plant visits. And they'll host an event at their site. They'll invite probably about 30 different people, slots for manufacturers to come and participate in that event, in that collaborative event.
Right. We were talking before we came on the air, and we were talking about how many events you do, but there was one that interested me, and it's called the Line Down event. Explain to the viewers what that is.
So it's actually an event. This is where one of the big benefits of the OpExChange is that you go to these events and you see things and you learn from those events, but you develop, it's a fraternal group, right? So you become peers and colleagues with these people across the state. And so one of the things that's evolved in the last couple of years is that somebody that had a line down event and said, Mike, I'm looking for a part for this machine. It's an obsolete part. Can you help me? Can our network help me to find that part? So that's one of the things that's evolved. And we just had one recently this year. Stoll Industries in Abbeville had a line down on their CNC machines, and they needed to get parts out to their customers. So they contacted me and said, Mike, can you help us? And so I just did an e-blast out to the OpExChange network, and then within hours, Sergeant Metal Fabricators in Anderson, yep, we got a part. We can loan you a part. And they were up and running, able to meet their demand.
How about that? There's no telling how much that type of quick reaction, what kind of money that saved. Because you've also got people sitting there ready to work and they can't work, and so you're wasting money,
yes,
and you're not making money. What a great way to be able to solve a problem.
That's what really makes you feel good about this, and when you see those type of things happen.
I was looking through the events that you hosted last year, and you guys, you tour a lot of these facilities, right? Mm-hmm. So your members get a chance to go to other and see how they work, right? Mm-hmm. So you've toured the big boys, Michelin, Boeing, ZF, Borg Warner, all those. I would assume they go into a rotation, and you're going to go to Michelin a couple years down the road again. Or,
well, I hope so.
Right. How does that work? How does someone get on that tour?
So it's about once every 4 years that I'd hit up somebody to host an event. But it's I talk with these people at the events, and the main thing is finding somebody that's doing something special that they can share, right? And it's, again, whether it's advanced manufacturing, using AI to do something, leadership. I mean, we had sites host events showing what they're doing with their leadership programs, and those are, when you get a group that's engaged and they're getting low attrition rates, that's really something to share. How are you doing that?
Right, exactly. Let's talk about the resources for the members. We've already talked about you got people that are right there that can help. I would assume you probably have an email group and folks can communicate quickly and efficiently. But what are the other types of resources you get if you're on the OpExChange?
So one of the things that we started this in 2021 is we now have an online portal where it's a library of events. And after each of these events, I will document it. I'll document it very, very well. I'll include all the things that we saw, all the things that they would let me share. Some companies will allow me to share pictures and even videos. AFL, they've hosted 2 events, and they allowed me to video their operations. So you can go and watch their general manager give this tour and walk through his operation and share what he's done at his plant. It's amazing. So that library, I think, probably about 100. I think 100 plant visits and webinars that are on this members-only portal. So you get a new engineer that starts, new lean engineer, and say, hey, I want you to go out, check out the portal, find 5 good lean events, and come back and report on it. Tell me what we should be doing here at our site.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. How does someone become a member?
Real simple. There's a application. It's an online application. You submit it. It gets to me, and within 24 hours, the board will approve the application. Not very expensive.
Yeah. How much is it?
It's $960 a year.
That sounds like a bargain.
Think about it. It's $960 a year, and you can attend all of these events. And it's not just for one person. This is your whole site. BMW is a member.
Yeah.
11,000 people. They're all members.
Right. Mike, really good stuff. I appreciate you joining us.
Oh, it's a blast. I love talking about the OpExChange.
Well, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Of course. Why wouldn't you? It's great stuff. Folks, don't go anywhere, though. We are going to be right back to talk with Christy Hilyer. As I mentioned a minute ago, Christy is with Malone Workforce Solutions. But before we go, I do want to give another shout-out to our friends at AFL and thank those guys for making it possible to bring content like this to the manufacturing community. AFL, located in the upstate back in 1984. And get this, when they joined, or when they came to the upstate in 1984, they were only manufacturing one product. You fast forward about 40 years now, and they are manufacturing more than 3,000 products at 13 manufacturing facilities around the world. They've got 1,200 folks that work up there at the Duncan plant, but they have 6,500 employees worldwide. So it is a great story that AFL has brought here to the upstate community. And again, we appreciate those guys. All right, we're going to take a quick 60-second break, check out this message from AFL, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing. I'm glad you have joined us. My next guest is here with me now. Her name is Christy Hilyer. Christy is the Regional Vice President for Malone Workforce Solutions. Someone from Malone has been joining us for a couple episodes now. Christy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Our studio, of course, in Greenville, South Carolina. You drove all the way up from Atlanta. How was the drive?
It was good.
Yeah?
Actually, I didn't get any of the Hurricane Debbie.
Good.
So didn't have to deal with any of that. So it was a pretty good job.
Christy, you are the Regional Vice President of Malone. Tell me what that means. What do you do?
So I am the Regional Vice President for the Southeast region. So I am actually over multiple states and offices, and they are Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, and then throw Texas in there with it.
All right. That's a little off, but
yeah.
Okay. Fly around a lot then.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I bet you do. We have been talking to, like I mentioned at the start here, we've been talking to a couple of your coworkers, including our last episode, Laura Dalzell was here. And before that, Tony Bartnetti was with us, and he joined us virtually.
Yep.
So Tony and I talked about artificial intelligence and how that is being used in the recruitment process. And Laura and I, we talked about a variety of things, including about your all's quality program and employee care program, and we'll touch on that a little bit as well today. But I want to start by talking just about good old-fashioned operations within the company. It's not as sexy a topic as artificial intelligence,
No.
but it is every bit as important. Making sure that your operation is running smoothly is important. And I think sometimes that's get lost in the shuffle because when we're talking about the hiring process, because of the workload that is on manufacturers these days, how do you approach helping people stay organized operationally?
We come in with several different types of customizable approaches, depending on the actual customer that we're partnering with. We could actually come in and, implement an RPO program where we are trying to help them increase their bandwidth in HR, which would be an extension of us. Or we actually come in and help them rewrite their job descriptions. We may get into their timekeeping system and actually partner there and do actual interviews for them on site, so that we're truly an extension of them. The other thing that we do is come in as a temp to hire model, right? So we take over all of their hiring and bring our candidates in for 30, 60, 90 days, whatever the customer wants. Just kind of like a trial period, if you will,
Right.
just to see if they're going to work out and then hopefully convert them in the end.
What size manufacturer is your all sweet spot? We've got about 6,000 manufacturers in South Carolina. You, of course, your sweet spot is not going to be the really small manufacturing company necessarily, but and maybe not the biggest, but I would assume it's somewhere in the middle, but give me an idea.
I have to disagree. I think a sweet spot for us is a small. Now, granted, we love a big one.
Define small.
I would say a small is probably a company that maybe has anywhere from 50 to
Okay.
120
Okay, that's
full-time
small.
employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Granted, I mean, we love the manufacturer with 5,000 too, right?
Well, of course.
But I will say, I think we definitely value and appreciate that smaller customer, because that gives us the opportunity to be well diversified across our business. We want the customer that wants just 5 candidates for now, and the customer that may just want 2 people. They want maybe a warehouse associate and a front desk person, right? But we also want the customer that wants 500 temps because they're doing a ramp up or they're adding an additional line in an OEM facility or something like that, and they need to increase their headcount so that they can increase production.
Yeah, I hear you, and it makes sense, I suppose, that a small manufacturer may be a good candidate for you, because let's face it, they're running around with like their hair's on fire, right? I mean,
Yes.
there's all kinds of stuff happening, and you got to wear a lot of different hats the smaller the company you are, which makes sense that from an operational perspective, which we throw staffing under that, that they would need more guidance and assistance. So I get that, right?
Absolutely. And that also allows a really close partnership where they really entrust us to come in pretty quickly early on and dive into what it is that their needs are, assisting them in rewriting their job descriptions, or even giving them a wage analysis to see if their wages are competitive in the market to help them long term hopefully move from having to use a staffing model to be able to function on their own.
Christy, I have heard you and some of your coworkers say that Malone is hyper-focused on quality.
Yes.
And of course that makes sense. But it has led, and Laura and I talked a little bit about this last month on the last show, it has led to you all creating, one of the things led you to creating a quality program.
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What is involved in that program, and how does it work?
Okay. So we actually implemented, it's called Quality at the Core. And each letter stands for something. So I'll start with the C, stands for classification, where we are actually taking just additional steps to classify the type of candidate that is coming through the door, and kind of like a ranking system, if you will. So we're ranking the candidate, but we're also ranking the customer. And we're bringing those two factors together at the end to be sure that we have ranked the candidate in the correct way, as well as the customer to be a perfect fit. Then we went a step further and said, observe. At that point, we're kind of digging in to get a more clear understanding, if you will, of what the candidate's perfect work environment looks like for them. Like what is their takeaway? What are they wanting to see? And so we're observing in more in depthness, if you will, to see what it is that fits them. Then we go to retention, which is really, I think, the biggest part of it all. Obviously, turnover is huge in any industry and any company, right? So with retention, it allows us to do a couple of different things that we've implemented that have been really impressed with. Applicant surveys. So we are doing an applicant survey up front from the candidate, and then we are going a step further and doing a stay and an exit survey. And we're providing those survey results to the customer pretty consistently to give them feedback of what the candidates are saying about their work environment, their onboarding, their training, the hours that they're working, etc. And it's just really good KPIs, key performance indicators, for us to be able to provide back to our customer. Then there's E, and that is evaluation, where we actually implemented QBRs, which is quarterly business reviews. And we are doing those with our customers, which is where we are actually stepping in and providing the data to them of how we recruited for the positions, the spend that we spent on that those recruiting efforts, as well as the turnover. So it gives them one big picture, right? And then we are also, in addition to that, added internal audits at the branch level, whereas we are coming in and auditing background checks, drug screens, I-9, and E-Verifies for all candidates that we place.
Quality at the core, CORE, classification, observe, retention, evaluation.
Yes.
I've got it. Let's switch gears, Christy, and I always like to talk to guests about how they have helped a client solve a real-world problem. Talk about challenges that existed and how you might have gone in and helped someone. Do you have a manufacturing client that you have helped solve a challenge like this? And if so, I'm assuming you do. How'd you do it? Give me that example.
Yeah, we actually do. We had a pretty large manufacturing client that had a need for a pretty quick wrap up of 200 plus employees. Mm-hmm. And we actually went in with an RPO model for that customer and partnered with their HR team.
Explain RPO model for me, please.
Recruitment Processing Outsource.
Got it.
So what that means is it's different from your temp to hire model. It's actually where we come in and really become a true extension of the organization. So we're actually on site with you. If you are in uniform, then we're wearing your uniform. So
You're working their day.
Yes, we're bringing in our recruiters, our staffing specialists that are a true extension of your HR team. We're in your system. We're operating just as we are you. But what we're doing is diving in, and we're helping you solution and clean up, whether it be your job descriptions, the way you're advertising, the way that you're recruiting, the way that you're interviewing, whatever it may be that we dive in and find is an overall issue that is slowing your ability down to make quick hires. So what we did was they had a need for 200 plus, right? Pretty quick. And they needed it, I want to say, Rick, it was like over 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's quick.
Yeah, and especially in the times that we're in, right? I mean, it was pretty quick. So we actually came in, did the full partnership, implemented the RPO. We had staff on site. We dug into their system. We got everything evaluated. We gave them our feedback. They accepted. We did all of their recruiting, all their interviewing, all their advertising. And I want to say we ended up with like right at 350 in 4.5 weeks.
Wow.
So
that is a lot in a short amount of time. One last thing, Christy, before I get you out of here. You guys, Malone is family owned. Is that correct?
yes, we are.
How long has Malone been around?
Oh my gosh, 1971.
Right,
Don't
okay.
quote me, but I know it was in the 70s. Yep.
Yeah, no worries. In that ballpark, there's got to be a lot of advantages of being a family-owned staffing agency in this industry that is so incredibly competitive.
Yes. And I think, one of the big things I like to say is we are family owned, but not operated. And what I mean by that is we have a pretty structured leadership team in place, but being family owned allows us to be flexible in our decision making, allows us to be customizable when partnering with our customers and clients. And it also gives us a leg up, if you will, on technology and having the financial backing to be able to be ahead of the game, if you will, and have the right tools and resources available for recruiting, advertising, placement, and those things.
Right.
Things of that nature.
Not as much red tape, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Understood.
Absolutely.
Christy, thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Folks, that's Christy Hilyer. She is the Regional Vice President at Malone Workforce Solutions. We're going to take a break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Let's Talk Manufacturing, everyone. And once again, I just want to thank our presenting partner, AFL. We really appreciate those guys helping to make this content possible for the manufacturing folks in South Carolina. Really appreciate those guys. Okay, I am here with our featured guest today. His name is Andy Kurtz. He is the CEO at Kopis. As a matter of fact, he founded Kopis 25 years ago, right?
Hard to believe, yeah.
1999.
May of 99.
Andy, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Andy was with us on Let's Talk Manufacturing, episode number 2, and we're up to episode number 7 now. And so several months back, you sat here in this chair, and we talked about artificial intelligence, and we're going to do that again today and kind of take it in a little bit of a different direction. But appreciate you coming back. Tell me, before we get into it, though, tell me about Kopis, okay? You guys are a tech solutions firm. You do business throughout the Southeast, right? I mean, you're a very well-respected custom software development firm. You know, when I hear about Kopis, when I look at Kopis, those are the types of things that come in. Started at 25 years ago. Tell us about it.
Well, yep, 25 years ago, and custom software development was what we started doing.
Yeah.
And we really did that, was kind of our sole focus for about 15 years.
Right.
But we expanded from there because we wanted to be able to start bringing solutions to our customers when it wasn't just, we can't find it.
Yeah.
And so our mission, the way we see it now, is to work with our customers and our clients. They have business objectives, and it's to try to help them understand how technology is either can help them achieve those business objectives, or maybe how their current technology is holding them back from hitting those objectives. You know, every system and every solution and every process works until you outgrow it. It doesn't. And so we can help identify where technology can help, and then we can also help implement that. So it's not just custom software. It's data warehousing, data visualization, data analytics, AI,
solutions,
ERP, all types of technology solutions.
That's right.
We don't try to force fit anything. We just want to understand the problem, what's the right solution, and let's figure out how to help the customer.
Got it. The problem that we're discussing today is workforce challenges within the manufacturing industry. And I remember when you and I were talking at that last episode, and we kind of sideswiped this a little bit. We touched on it just a bit. And as a matter, I'm going to have a QR code up on the screen, or maybe something scrolling on the bottom to where you all can click and watch Andy's prior interview. It was really good. But we kind of touched on the edges of how artificial intelligence can assist manufacturers, or anyone for that matter. But in this case, manufacturers solve some problems. And I remember when we first talked about it, I was like, I don't understand it. I'm not following but we're talking generative AI assisting in the workplace. So kind of just give us that overview of first, what is generative AI?
Well, at a high level, the way I would describe it is it's AI that you can interface with using natural language. It will look at its repository of information and answer questions and have a conversation with you and take a lot of data and make it queryable and meaningful with our everyday language.
Right. And so, you're talking about things when you go online and now you Google, and the first thing now that pops up is AI enhanced answers.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I mean,
you go to
that's
Google,
what you're
going to get it. You go to Bing, you're going to get it.
That's
Copilot, Microsoft has it, Apple has it, Google has it. They all have that. Meta has it. They all have their generative AI, that Chat GPT style interface.
Right.
And all those are public facing.
Right. And so let's get into the details just a little bit. So setting the stage, manufacturing, and there are plenty of industries that are struggling with workforce things and getting good people and hiring qualified people and finding the candidates. A lot of industries are experiencing trouble with that. But in South Carolina, manufacturing runs our economy to one degree or another, so it's kind of a bigger deal here, right? So manufacturing are struggling a little bit. I read something that you had written, and it gave the following info. Let me make sure I've got it right here. You said that Forbes says 4 million baby boomers will leave the workforce this year alone. 4 million. That's 10,000 a day. Of course, across all industries.
Yep.
But that's a lot of institutional knowledge that is saying bye-bye.
Exactly.
And now we got to figure out a way to address that.
Yep. So our belief is that you have one of two choices. You can let that institutional knowledge retire, walk out the door, or you can turn that institutional knowledge into an asset for your organization. And historically, we would ask people when they're leaving a job, hey, would you please write down what you do? Put it in a process manual, but document it. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever tried to read one of those documents and get anything out of it, but it's really challenging. And so our belief is that there is a better way now with generative AI. Those process documents are still valuable. If they can write them, if they can document it, great. But if you have somebody who has a wealth of knowledge, it could be somebody on the plant floor who is on the maintenance side. And there's that one person who always knows everything, right? And machine's down and you go ask, hey, go ask Joe what we should do. So Joe's going to retire. How do you get that information out of Joe's head? One thing you can do is obviously ask them the right documents, but you can also go through a process of interviewing them. And we've done this actually for some technology that we have where there's one person, he has most of the institutional knowledge. And we just went through a series of interviews with them, scheduled 1 hour a week, picked the topic, had people talk. He gave a little presentation, then the group talked about it. That turned into a video, that turned into transcripts that we were able to put into a private generative AI model. And his name is Richard. And so now if there is something, well, we enhanced that with emails over time. Hey, what are the emails that Richard had over time? If we had support tickets, what were the support ticket answers? And just feed it all into this repository, make it available. And we turned it into something we call, Hey, Richard.
Right.
Which in our case is, how do I either support a customer or support the infrastructure of a technology solution that we have? Right. So manufacturers can do this. It's really industry agnostic. It's really a question of how do you go through a process of getting the information out of somebody's head. So in some cases, you already have it. Like I mentioned, email, documents they may have written, PowerPoint presentations they might have put together, support tickets they might have done, service tickets they might have done, whatever those types of things are. But along with that, throw in an interviewing process. Mm-hmm. That's the process of doing that. Don't make it tedious. Just you can do it over. You can do it over a year.
Do it over time.
Do it over
Richard
time.
A little bit time to breathe.
Exactly.
And Richard lives on forever in this fashion.
And you've turned the knowledge that Richard has into an institutional asset that you can use to train other workforce people. But the other part of it is that training, it doesn't have to be number one, go read it and try and figure it out and then apply it.
Yeah.
Number two, gosh, now we have a problem. Now I have to go through this documentation and find it.
Right.
Again, now you have a natural language. I'm going to have a conversation with this Hey Richard model to ask it a question, get an answer, and go back and forth, and it will dissect that knowledge base, for lack of a better term, right? The combination of all those videos, all those transcripts, all those emails, all that documentation, and come back and say, here's what I think the answer is.
Let's talk about how you ask, Richard. I'm just curious in this regard. So could it be something as cool as pulling out your phone, not necessarily your phone, but when you say, hey, Siri, right?
Oh, it could totally, it
right?
should be.
You say, hey, Siri, but now you're saying, hey, Richard, the such and such line just went down and I'm getting a red flashing light. What the heck do I do? Are we talking about
We are talking about exactly that kind of thing. I don't know what, yep.
Isn't that
it could
cool?
be your phone. If you have your phone and it's allowed to be connected to, hey, Richard, keep in mind with the AI, you better have security. That needs to be top of mind, right?
Yes,
so,
right.
So you may have a company issued device that they're carrying around there. It could be a tablet that they have. There are all sorts of options. You know, if they have a digital device, the goal would be that they don't have to go somewhere though to get the answer, come back and try it, go back. It's just right while I'm there, I'm working on this, and I have the equivalent of Richard standing over my shoulder that I can ask questions. Is it exactly like Richard? No. But you have still turned that knowledge into an asset to try to help upskill the workforce and train the workforce faster on how to solve things with that previous knowledge that Richard had.
What do you foresee is, and we're just going to keep it, of course, in the manufacturing industry, what do you foresee that the employee would be accessing? We said a phone, but, you know, forget the phone for a sec. Do you have some kind of workstation there that you're going to type in, hey, Richard? What's this?
I think
it could look like anything.
It really could, and I think it's totally dependent on the industry, what the layout of the plant would look like, what thing you're trying to do, because this doesn't necessarily have to be just plant floor items. This could be stuff in a logistics side of the business or a procurement side of the business where you've captured that institutional knowledge.
Anything.
So quite frankly, it's where does that worker have the ability to interface with the Hey Richard model and get the answer? That's part of the job. Our job is to help figure out what's the right device for this problem.
So a company calls you and they say, Andy, I love this idea. Let's talk it through. I would imagine that the first thing you're going to do is you have to capture the information, right?
Yep.
You talked about Richard coming in and you just recorded Richard, which turned into transcripts.
Yep.
Which then, of course, fills a database, fills a store, an asset store.
Yep, exactly.
Right. So the first thing is to capture that, and then, of course, you're going to have to figure out what to capture and what's important to capture and what's not. That would be a lot of conversation to kind of get things moving in a direction.
It can be, but you can start small.
Yeah.
And understand that the answers you're getting are limited to the data that the model has. Right. And so you have the ability to do a pilot and test and see, are we getting the answers we want? And do that fairly quickly. There are paradigms that we've already worked through that allow you to quickly have a repository that you can continue to build over time.
Every time I talk about something like this, and we talk about artificial intelligence, I always think, but you can go too far. You got to be careful that you don't rely on it too much. Because in these types of things you're talking about, this HR type of stuff, that's always been the real handsy thing, right? And now all of a sudden you're taking hands away from some piece of it, but you really got to be careful about that.
You do. As a matter of fact, I was at a conference and there was a talk that somebody was giving just recently, and they made very clear it's important to have humans validating what AI is doing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean validating every result, every situation, but there needs to be some validation of what AI is doing on a regular basis, on an audited basis, at a minimum, to make sure that the AI is doing the right thing. I don't know how many of you have gone to chat and asked it a question and realized it just lied to me.
Yeah.
Because it will try to give you an answer.
Yeah.
And I've had it flat out, like, just as an example, I asked for lyrics to a Grateful Dead song that were about innovation, and it very confidently gave me the lyrics to a Tom Petty song. And if I hadn't known it was a Tom Petty song, I might have accepted it. But I challenged it, and he goes, "Oh, you're right." And it. So that's the reality of what generative AI can do.
You know, last time you were here, we had a conversation just like we're having right now, and it kind of used the term drift. It drifted, right? We drifted from this to that, and we wound up landing on a conversation that with a little bit of levity about artificial intelligence. And the first time I was aware of artificial intelligence was 1984 when I saw a movie called The Terminator. And we discussed that a little bit. And I remember asking you a question about how realistic was that, and just kind of a joking way. And your response surprised me a little because, well, I'm going to let you answer it again. So
Curious if my answer is going to be the same this time.
yeah, that's right. I want to hear what you. So in 1984, Terminator comes out. Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? He is a cyborg. Now we know that we're not going to invent time travel, and we know that cyborgs aren't going to come back from the future. Okay, so forget that for a second. However, that was a piece of artificial intelligence that learned and learned and learned and learned until it became dangerous.
Yep.
Okay, and so just forget the movie piece of it, but just when you break it all down, is there a real concern there?
Again, I don't remember what I said last time.
I'm going to
tell you my answer today is
Okay.
I think there's a concern there.
That's what you said last time.
Yeah, I think there's a concern there. And especially if you simply let it go.
Yeah.
And don't,
No regulation.
no regulation, no monitoring,
Yeah.
that validation I just talked about.
Yes, right.
And so I think the biggest risk, biggest risk may be a stretch, but the risk is we become confident that it will do that it's doing the right thing at all times.
Yeah.
And that we do start to, there is in fact, I think we will have a scenario where the AI becomes so powerful that it starts to teach itself how to
Yes.
do things better. And we talked about drift a little while ago. Well, if it drifts in the wrong direction,
Right.
there's risk. And so I do think that without regulation, without controls, this is why that crawl, walk, run, I think's good. But I think the higher risk is it's new. So we're all crawl, walk, running. It's when we're running
Yeah.
and we just become so darn confident
Yeah.
that now and suddenly something bad happens. Will it be that the Terminators take over? No, but something really,
Yeah.
depending on what you've turned control over to AI to do, there's at some point a risk that it doesn't do it right.
So let's go back to the AI that answered your question about the Grateful Dead song and answered it with the Tom Petty song. Now, if you didn't correct AI and AI just learned that was indeed a Tom Petty song, when in reality it wasn't, then I could see that might begin to drift somewhere. Now all of a sudden, all your songs are wrong, right? All your lyrics
starts to
are wrong.
reinforce itself
Right, it
correctly.
reinforces itself. And now every Grateful Dead song is a Tom Petty song or vice versa or whatever. And now you got a problem.
Now you got risk. Yeah.
Now you can't mix up Jerry Garcia and Tom Petty.
That'd be foolish.
That would be foolish. But that's the kind of thing that you're talking about.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly. So I think we need governance. I'm for the fact of putting in, hey, these are rules and requirements around the use of AI, what we're going to allow it to do, where we're going to allow it to do. And listen, I'm not all for like micro regulation of it,
right.
but macro regulation where especially if they're infrastructure critical and those types of things. I think we need to be smart about our use of it.
Yeah.
And so make sure we have controls around it. But listen, it's not going away.
No, it's not.
It shouldn't.
It's going to fly 1,000,000 miles a minute, too, for quite some time.
It is.
What concerns me, what concerns me, Andy, is that even if we decided you're going to regulate it, you got people all over the world that are going to feel differently about what regulations should be put in place, right? Country X is going to feel different than country Y, and if China decides, I don't think I should regulate that, but we feel it needs to, China's going to do what China does.
You're right. That's
Right?
correct.
And I don't know how you address that.
I don't know how you address that either. That's a risk we've had with all technology.
Right.
I wish I had a great answer, but I don't. But
Nobody has
it is absolutely a risk.
Yeah, nobody has that answer. Andy, great stuff, man.
Yeah, it's fun.
It is a lot of fun. And
Moving fast.
yep, you've been on here twice, and I've had great fun.
I'm a regular.
So you are a regular. I'll see you in another 4 or 5 months, but thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Always enjoy being here.
Folks, that is Andy Kurtz. He is the CEO at Kopis, and we appreciate you joining us. And we'll see you in about a month on another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing. Thanks to AFL.